I now want to bring into the conversation legal analyst Neama Rahmani. Neama, you've been joining us for so long here. You're a frequent guest here on Live Now from Fox. Folks may not know that you also went to Harvard as well, so I'm sure a story like this hits home. But let's just start off with the very basics. Harvard University filed that lawsuit. Was this an expected move?
It was, Christina, and you're right. I'm a proud Harvard Law School alumnus. I actually go back every summer and I help champion their program on negotiation at the law school. But this was not unexpected. After Harvard filed to challenge the block of the federal funding and the grants, we knew that this was coming. And really, the only question was how soon, and it was very soon. This decision to really cancel the student visas was made yesterday, or at least made public. And just this morning, Harvard went into district court and won, and they won big. A temporary restraining order blocking imposition of this change, this order, which sets this out about a week or so. And the judge is going to consider an injunction. And that injunction would put this on hold for quite some time. Now, of course, the administration is going to appeal this. It'll first go to the First Circuit and then likely all the way to the Supreme Court because this is a big deal. It affects thousands of students and it raises First Amendment issues, Administrative Procedure Act issues. And I have to say that one of those justices on the Supreme Court, Justice Kagan, was the former dean of Harvard Law School, and she taught me the Administrative Procedures Act when I was a student there as well. So they have a pretty good audience there.
It'll certainly be interesting to watch, especially knowing there's that personal connection there. I want to put this up from Harvard University. They posted this on their X account saying, without its international students, Harvard is not Harvard. I also want to read a portion of the statement that they put out, that link there, link to this entire statement. It's quite lengthy. We're not going to go through the entire thing here, but portion of this says, we condemn this unlawful and unwarranted action. It imperils the futures of thousands of students and scholars across Harvard and serves as a warning to countless others at colleges and universities as well. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this. First of all, as you talked about that temporary injunction that could potentially be filed, what prompts a judge to step in? What evidence did Harvard present in court that they were able to get this granted in the meantime?
So there's a few things judges look for. They look for irreparable harm and they look for the likelihood of success on the merit. So you have thousands of students here. If their F&J visas were revoked, they would be out of status. So they would have to either transfer to another university in the United States or potentially return home. They could have been deported or removed. They're not green card holders. They're not U.S. citizens. They don't have a right to be here if they're not in university. Now, there have been instances where the student visa program has been suspended for certain institutions or revoked, but those are situations where these schools are committing immigration fraud. They're not really schools at all. Not like what's happening here. This is really unprecedented. And I know, Christina, we use that term a lot when it comes to the Trump administration and these legal challenges, but we've never had the university try to revoke this program for thousands of students because they disagree with the protests that are occurring on campus. So this is a big deal, and that's why Judge Burroughs said, you know what? There's thousands of students who may have to return home. There's students who have been accepted, are planning to enroll in the fall. They might not be able to come. So given the seriousness of this, I'm going to block this at least temporarily while the litigation plays out.
Taking another live look there at the White House, I want to focus on the students as well, Neama. We do know that international students make up about 27% of Harvard's total enrollment, with more than 6,700 international students enrolled at the university as of last fall. Of course, we have you here. You were on campus. I'm sure you saw the melting pot that Harvard is. What is the impact going to be like for those students? Because there is a human element here ultimately.
There is. And like you said, this affects a significant percentage of the student population there. And, this is affecting universities across the country, what the administration has done in terms of pulling back the funding. Now, with Harvard, the university that is the oldest and the richest wanting to fight back, the Trump administration is trying to take this really two steps further. In addition to canceling these grants that Columbia and some of these other universities have suffered, the administration is trying to do two things: this student visa cancellation, but also trying to revoke Harvard's tax exempt status. So this is really a heavyweight fight that we're seeing. There's no one or no company that has stood up to Donald Trump like Harvard. And obviously, this is a university that's 400 years old. It has a multi-billion-dollar endowment. It has, not counting myself, some of the best and brightest lawyers that they can count as graduates. So they have dug in their heels and they're going to fight on behalf of their students because this is something that can affect thousands and thousands of students, not just at Harvard, but at universities across the country, because it's no secret that the United States of America has by far the best colleges. So people from around the world want to come here to study. Of course, Harvard is the best of the best.
I'm glad you mentioned that because you're right. It's not the only case that Harvard is currently fighting against the Trump administration. In fact, they did rescind more than $2.65 billion in federal funding. Just in April of this year, the president suggested that he would yank the university's tax exempt status as well. And the education department is also probing the university's foreign funding. I mean, when we're talking about what's happening there, is the administration potentially biting off more than they can chew to have multiple of these lawsuits going on against one place in particular with Harvard? But we were hearing there from Caroline Shively there with that update from Fox News. The administration has also been putting a lot of pressure on Columbia, too, in New York.
I agree, Christina. I think the administration is biting off more than it can chew. And this is why. There's certain areas where I think they have a strong argument. So, for instance, when it comes to affirmative action, the Supreme Court has ruled that, race really can't be taken into consideration in admissions decisions. So I think that's something that they would win on. Obviously, protecting their students and anti-Semitism, that's something that I think the federal government absolutely can and should do under Title VI. But when you're talking about, viewpoint based regulation, right? The Trump administration or the United States government going into a private university and saying, you know what, we want more diversity in the faculty hires. That's going too far. They want to appoint someone to make sure that the curriculum is fair and it's not just teaching woke liberal ideology. Again, that's going too far. There's nothing in federal law that allows them to do this. So I think that's the issue in this case. And even if they could do this, before you can yank funds or make these types of changes, there are procedures that have to be followed. The university should be given a hearing, the opportunity to present their case, to appeal it. That's what the APA is all about, the Administrative Procedures Act. So both in terms of how far the government is going and how they're handling it. That's the issue here and why Harvard has such a strong case. And I expect them to continue winning at every stage of this legal battle.
It does get to be a bit complicated here as Harvard, of course, has all of those students from all around the world that are there on their campus. They want to keep their students happy while also creating somewhat of a balance there for everyone. But I have to ask you before I let you go, Neama, when we're looking ahead in this argument, how far do you expect this to go? You mentioned the Supreme Court. What other steps would be taken in order to reach that?
I think it will reach the Supreme Court. So first started with the Department of Homeland Security sending a letter asking Harvard to turn over a few categories of information. First, disciplinary records for all their international students, and then any evidence they have of them participating in the protests over the past 5 years. So we don't know what happened behind the scenes. There were some letters written back and forth. Harvard said they provided some information and they didn't provide all the information. The secretary was not satisfied, the DHS secretary. So that's what really resulted in this process. Harvard, of course, immediately filed to try to get this case outside of the executive branch and into Article 3, the judiciary, where they have a good legal argument. So we're here now. So Harvard is winning. They blocked this order, but I don't think the Trump administration and the Department of Justice, they're not going to go out without a fight. So they're going to fight this. And then one thing about injunctions, they are immediately appealable. We've seen it in different cases involving immigration and so forth. So once that preliminary injunction is issued, and I fully expect it to be issued as early as next week, Christina, then we're going to see the appeal to the circuit court. So then a three-judge panel will hear this, and I'm certain that a case like this, given the important First Amendment issues that we're talking about, freedom of speech and the role of universities in America, I would be surprised if the Supreme Court declines to hear this case. This case is very likely going to end up before the Supreme Court, where again, 8 of those 9 justices went to Harvard and Yale. So this is going to be a big deal for them personally.
The face of education, higher education here in our country is going to be interesting here on Live Now from Fox to continue to watch. I will say, though, Neema, lastly, before I let you go, when you talked about the endowment that Harvard has, they have one of the largest endowments in the entire country. Do you feel like they have the support behind them, the money to fight this against the federal government?
I do, Christina. Even when they first filed their lawsuit in response to the funding and the grants that had been canceled, they received a lot of donations in the ensuing days, and they have billions of dollars. So they're uniquely situated in terms of being an entity that can fight this fight, that can outlast Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is going to be gone in 4 years, one way or another. Harvard University is going to be around forever. And they have the money and they have the resources. And importantly, Christina, they have the lawyers to fight this fight. So they're going to push this the whole way.
All right, again, Neama Rahmani here, legal analyst, to help us break down the very latest. We appreciate you, as always, here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks, Christina. Talk soon.